Hey everyone, I'm Stephen Wessner, CEO of Predictive ROI. Thanks for coming back for episode 4 of our video series. In this video, I'm going to share with you how business owners can use the power of voice to win in their business development strategy. Now, this is also going to be the first of a 3-part series. So for today, I'm going to share all of the science behind it, all of the reasons why you should consider voice as part of your overall business development strategy. And I'm going to remove as much marketing hyperbole as possible because I think that marketing hyperbole, there's a lot of it around this particular topic, I think it has no place whatsoever when we're talking about how to build and scale a business. So we're going to set that aside. And what I'm going to give you and what I'm going to share with you are citations and third-party research from very credible third-party sources. You'll be able to see that in the lower left corner of your screen when I share some of the research with you, because I want to make sure that you have access to the same research points that my Predictive ROI team has access to, so that you can sit down with your team and make a very good decision about your voice-centric strategy and how to put that into practice inside your business. No marketing hyperbole, right behind the curtain so you can see everything that we see. Okay, so for today, we're going to focus on the neuroscience behind it, the opportunity, and why I think very strongly you should be moving down the path of having a voice-centric strategy as part of your business development. Okay, so first though, if we're talking about voice, let me give you some context as to what we're talking about. Because oftentimes when a business owner hears voice, it's really easy to think of, well, Stephen must be talking about podcasting. And certainly podcasting is part of that kind of category, if you will. But podcasting is only a piece of that overall category. So voice today, what that means is voice optimized search, or voice-centric search engine optimization, Alexa skills, Google Home skills. Apple has recently released their at-home device called HomePod, and Samsung is rumored to be releasing theirs. Spotify is rumored to be developing their own device. So there's an entire category now of voice-controlled devices, even an acronym, or VCDs, in this space. So when we think about voice, it's really anything that is voice-enabled or voice-controlled. If we're talking about Amazon Echo, we're talking Google Home, those types of on-your-counter devices, but then also the business applications of those, as well as search, as well as podcasting. One of the things that I want to really express and drive home in this video is that in order to really be effective in voice, in my opinion, your strategy needs to be channel agnostic. What I mean by that is it needs to start with strategy, with the content strategy. What is the content and what is the strategy behind it, specifically the monetization strategy behind it that you're going to be using for voice? How does that then stretch across or impact all of the devices? Whether that's Alexa, whether that's Google Home, whether that's voice-based search or voice-centric search or podcasting, how does your strategy stretch across all of those different devices? And how does that strategy help you become more helpful to your audience, to your clients, to your prospects, and so forth? So it really needs to be channel agnostic, as opposed to, well, I'm going to dominate in podcasts, but then I'm going to not pay attention to any of the other things, when you can take some of this content, repurpose it, slice and dice it, like we talked about in episode 2 of this video series, and then it becomes appropriate for other channels because then it becomes native across those channels. So it really does need to be channel agnostic across multiple channels, driven by a monetization strategy, so that you know the content you're creating helps you build an audience because you're helpful to that audience, but then it also drives revenue back into your core business. That is a very balanced voice strategy. So bringing that loop to closure, or bringing that full circle, in my opinion, voice represents 2 very significant business development opportunities for owners. One, it gives you another opportunity, another way to share your point of view, which is really important. How do you share your point of view of what you do, why you do it, and for whom you do it for within your business? And doing that through voice is a great way to do that because you're using your voice. It gives your audience an opportunity to hear you, understand you, develop I know it might sound weird, develop a relationship with you because they hear your voice. So that's the first thing. It gives you an opportunity to share your point of view. Second, it then opens you up to, a number of different monetization opportunities, which we also talked about in episode 2, and we'll probably go even deeper in future episodes. So gives you a chance to share your point of view in a unique way, and there are significant monetization opportunities that are attached to a really, really sound voice strategy. Okay, so what I'm going to share with you now up on the screen is 5 important statistics that, in my opinion, all marketers need to know. First, the fact that 20% of all mobile searches on Google are made by voice. That is an incredibly huge number, but it's also a number that is growing really, really fast. But I also want to slice that apart and give some additional context around that. 20% of mobile searches on Google are done by voice. What we'll see here in a few minutes when I share a ComScore data point is that 50% of all searches in a couple of years are going to be then voice-based, right? But we're already at 20% of mobile being voice, which is really significant. And then I also want you to pay attention to the piece about how 87% of US marketers or B2C marketers think that digital assistants and chatbots will play a key role in just 3 years. That's a huge percentage of B2C or business to consumer marketers. And then I also want you to pay attention to most of the smart speaker apps are not used again within 2 weeks. And what I mean by that is, so next week, we're going to be talking about Alexa skills and Alexa briefings. This is really, really important when it comes to creating sticky content, essentially content that is super helpful, super relevant, and super impactful for your listeners, for your audience. Because if you don't, this is what happens. This is the data point that happens, is that your audience stops using it. After 2 weeks, it's no longer new, it's no longer fun, it's no longer helpful, perhaps. Maybe it's old, stale, whatever. You're recycling content. There's a litany of reasons why your audience might drop off. So it's really, really important to know that the statistic is most stop after 2 weeks. So if you're going to create an Alexa briefing or an Alexa skill, how can you do that in such a way that keeps your audience coming back so you're helpful for a long period of time? Okay, so let's go back to the searching piece for just a second, because I want to show you, try to illustrate with some math, some numbers as to how fast the market is growing and also how impactful voice-based search is going to be. So this next slide that you're seeing here is about how fast the market is growing, but how dominant Google is, just to kind of give some context about what I'm going to share here shortly about voice search. So the fact that 40,000 searches are conducted per second on Google. Think about that. 40,000 searches per second are conducted on Google, which means about 3.5 billion searches a day. I did some math to extrapolate that. And when we think about all search engines, we're talking about 6 billion searches a day across all search engines. Okay, so now let's take a look at this next slide that shows how the connected world, if you will, based on population growth, based on access to internet and how that's growing, how that number is changing then based on total searches. So let's look at how the market essentially is growing over the next 3 years, and about 500 million new consumers are going to be entering the connected world, if you will, over the next 2 or 3 years. 500 million. Okay, so then this next slide about from ComScore telling us that, or showing us that 50% of all searches, not just mobile searches, like we were talking about a minute or so ago, but 50% of all searches on a daily basis will be conducted by voice. And voice search engine optimization or voice-centric search is different than text-based search. So that means that if we have an optimized website today and it's ranking well within Google and the content is largely text, and we're really relying on the text-based search. Somebody goes into Google and types in what it is they're searching for, and we rank well for that. That's awesome today. 2 years from now, that means that maybe 50% of our traffic goes away if we haven't re-optimized our website for voice search. So it is very, very important. And we're going to cover voice-centric search in episode, what will that be, 6. So be sure to watch that, because I'll slice apart all the things that we're doing and testing today so you can take that and apply that into your business. Why this is also important, let me give you another data point about voice, and that has to do with voice shopping. Today, voice shopping represents $2 billion a year in transactions. $2 billion a year today. A few years from now, as you can see from this slide, that number is expected to be $40 billion by 2022. Again, you can see the citation in the lower left corner, so you can look that up as well. This is not hyperbole. This is not marketing fluff. That these are the expectations. This is what we're seeing. 2 billion today, up to 40 billion in 4 short years, right? So that's the impact of voice as it relates to shopping. I also want to give you some frame of reference, if you will, with respect to market share across some of the devices. So let's take a look at this next slide about the difference between Alexa, the difference between Google Home, and those market share differences. And on the surface, it might look like Amazon is losing ground to Google because of the Q4 in 2016, the Q4 in 2017. However, it's really, really important to point out that in Amazon, or from Amazon, by Amazon, fourth quarter of 2017, Amazon said that the highest selling product across millions and millions of SKUs, the thing that they sold more of than anything else was the Echo Dot. They didn't release an actual number, but they did say we sold millions and millions of them. And so when you see these market share differences between 2016 and 2017, please remember that the market is growing so almost exponentially. So, Amazon still clearly has the market share advantage, but they're also selling millions and millions and millions of devices. So we need to keep that in perspective too, when we see that on the surface, it looks like Amazon's losing ground to Google, when in all actuality, the market is growing quite a bit. And so Google's certainly selling some, but Alexa still has the dominant market share. Now we're going to get into some neuroscience here, again, because I want to take you as far away from the marketing hyperbole of you should have an Alexa skill or you should have an Alexa briefing because it's cool, because it's awesome. Sure, sometimes it's great to be the first in the space. Absolutely. I'm not denying that. But business owners often have limited resources. And if they're going to invest in this, that means we have to say no to that. I want to make sure that if you're going to go down the path of voice, that you have the right expectations, that you have the right framework, that you make the right investments, and that you're doing it for all the right reasons. Okay, so let's take a look at this piece. Again, some neuroscience here over the next several visuals that I want to share with you. So J. Walter Thompson has an intelligence group where they study new trends every year, publish some excellent reports. So I would highly recommend J. Walter Thompson's intelligence group because they're phenomenal. And so one of the reports that I was looking at for 2017 and into 2018 were the findings from their most recent study about why somebody uses voice versus like text-based commands. Why use a voice command versus typing into an iPad? And that's what we're going to see here is that oftentimes people were using voice commands, like the reason why they were doing it was because they felt that it was faster to use. They felt that it was faster to speak into the device as opposed to typing it out into an iPad or into the mobile phone. It was just easier. Over 60% of the survey audience, of the participants, said it was just easier to use. And by the way, the sample size or sample was taken across 9 different countries in order to remove any sort of geographic bias or whatever. So 9 different countries in the sample. And as we can see from this next visual, that most often the voice-based searches were to look things up and get things done on the web. So it wasn't about, checking the weather or checking a score or whatever. It was about doing online searches and getting things done. That was the purpose. So it's really important to keep that in context, because when I've talked with business owners before about the power of voice, it was, oh, well, sure, it's checking the weather, it's doing, kind of, monotonous things that might not have a lot of value. But in all actuality, that is not that. It's about getting things done. Okay, so this is a piece that is kind of my own opinion here. This is not, based on J. Walter Thompson or third-party research. I think one of the downsides to Alexa, even though I love it, I think it's a fantastic platform. We're developing content for it, building skills and briefings and all of that. I think it's amazing. But if I have to put a little asterisk by it, that the downside that I see to it is the fact that really from a web search perspective, it's not that helpful. If you're asking to do a web-based search, find something, Alexa will find something through, Wikipedia, and deliver those results to you. typically not that helpful. Versus if you're using Google Home, then obviously you're opened into kind of the Google search universe, if you will, which is obviously very dominant in the #1 search engine on the planet. In my opinion, as you'll see here, is that I think that Alexa at some point or Amazon at some point will do a partnership with Microsoft in order to blend Alexa and Bing. Microsoft has really struggled with their voice-controlled assistant. And so I think that that type of partnership makes a lot of sense. Again, that is my opinion. Microsoft and Amazon already have a partnership on the table as it relates to Office 365. So I don't think it would be that much of an extension or a reach, if you will, for them to do something, like this as well. So as you'll see then from this next slide, is that from, again, a brain scan or neuroscience perspective, it is just easier. There is less effort involved in executing a voice-based search versus text. So on the left-hand side where it's blue and on the right-hand side where it's red, left-hand side represents Alexa, right-hand side represents typing in by text. And this is essentially through the coloring showing us that blue is good, representing less effort, versus red is bad, representing a lot of effort or more effort. And so it's just easier to use a voice-based command than it is to type in a text-based command or a search into our iPad. Can't believe this, that one, that this is actually the data, and two, that J. Walter Thompson's group thought to study this, but what a phenomenal result outcome. So think about that. You as a business owner, in your voice-centric strategy, channel agnostic, your goal ought to be, how can we create content that is so super helpful, that removes all of the barriers, that truly makes it easy for one of our clients and our prospects to do business with us, because we have the neuroscience to show that using a voice-based command is literally easier than a text-based command. And if we can create the content that facilitates that, we're going to win. That is a solid business development strategy for you. Okay, so then there's a couple of other things that extend beyond just the neuroscience piece of it, and that is Alexa for Business, right? And so Alexa for Business is getting into a wide variety of really sophisticated integrations. So Alexa will now currently integrate with Zoom. It'll integrate with Office 365. Even it will integrate with SAP and Salesforce, even G Suite, which is ironic since Google has a competing product. But Alexa will integrate across all of these various platforms so that you can say, Alexa, start a meeting, or turn down the lights, or lock the doors, or order new supplies for the copier, or to go into SAP or to Salesforce and say, run the third quarter numbers for this particular salesperson or the sales team, or cost of goods, or whatever it might be, so that you can now use voice-controlled devices truly as part of your operational strategy within your business. Okay, so then when we think about Amazon Echo, we think of Alexa, what can a business owner do within that environment, if you will? There are Alexa skills and Alexa briefings, typically two kind of tracks to follow. And one is software, which is skills, and then one is briefings, which is essentially daily content. Now, I'm going to slice them apart in episode 5 of this video series. And we're going to go down paths. I'm going to share some examples on screen, some additional research points, so that as you consider skills briefings, which one might be right for you, potentially both, or maybe neither, as part of your business development strategy. I'm going to really give you some tangible examples in episode 5. So that's what we're going to do in next week's episode. And then again, remember at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that in episode 6, so essentially 2 weeks from today, we're going to go into voice-centric search engine optimization. So I can give you some tangible steps and tools that you and your team can apply to make your content capable or able to rank well if somebody is executing a search-based voice or from voice as opposed to text. So that's what we're going to cover in the next couple of weeks. Between now and then, as always, let us know, thumbs up or thumbs down. Use the comments below if you have questions, concerns. You can always email me too at Stephen@predictiveroi.com, which is STEPHEN at predictiveroi.com. Please do let us know what you think. Your feedback helps us get better each and every week, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, onward with gusto.